once a bustling mining town echoing with church bells and crowded streets. Today, all that remains are smoke, cracked asphalt, and the hum of abandonment. This is Centralia. Centralia was a town located in the state of Pennsylvania, USA. Before the underground fire that began in 1962, it had the look of a typical small American mining town. Founded back in 1866. By the 1960s, its population was around 1,400. It was a close-knit community made up of miners of Irish, English, and Eastern European descent. With one movie theater, 3 schools, 7 churches, and 27 businesses, Centralia had a strong social fabric. Everyone knew each other. The miners' unions were strong, and labor movements were influential. Annual festivals, church events, and miners' solidarity organizations kept the community united. By the late 1950s, as the demand for coal decreased, mining activity slowed down. Some mines were shut down, but the town continued to live on. Who could have imagined that the closed mines would lead to such a great tragedy? Before Memorial Day, May 27, 1962, the Centralia Borough decided to clean up the town landfill. The landfill was located next to an old strip mine and had filled up over time. The firefighters chose to burn the trash to clean the site. This was a common practice back then. They believed they had extinguished the fire, but the flames continued to seep deeper underground. The landfill was connected to abandoned mine tunnels, and the fire eventually reached the underground coal veins. Once ignited, the coal seams began to burn underground. At first, the following weeks seemed uneventful. But strange things started happening over time. The ground grew warmer. Basement floors and homes filled with mist. By the end of the 1960s, the underground fire had spread widely beneath the town. Toxic carbon monoxide began leaking to the surface. One resident summarized the tragedy as, "We were sweating without turning the stove on. Smoke was rising from the yard. Then we realized the ground below us was on fire." In 1979, the underground fire was definitively confirmed when temperatures in a gas station's storage tanks rose abnormally high. That gas station belonged to John Coddington, Centralia's only gas station owner and also its mayor. While inspecting the underground tanks, Coddington discovered that temperatures, which should have been around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, had reached 77 degrees Celsius. As you can imagine, this temperature was basically a ticking time bomb. The tanks were immediately emptied and the station shut down. This urgent closure also prompted the first estimate of how long the fire would last, about 17 more years. Unfortunately, they were wrong. Authorities attempted various methods to extinguish the fire, flooding, filling with soil, but none succeeded. In 1981, on Valentine's Day, 12-year-old Todd Domboski was nearly killed when a sinkhole suddenly opened beneath him in his grandmother's yard. After this incident, the media's attention finally turned to the town. Interviews with the boy and footage from the town gave the story national exposure. The media began to cover the Centralia fire as a true tragedy. through interviews with Todd and his uncle, Frank Domboski, who had saved him. This event brought the federal government into the picture, and in 1983, the official evacuation process began. With the establishment of a $42 million evacuation fund, homes and properties were purchased in nearby towns. Residents were encouraged to relocate. Between 1984 and 1990, most of the town's approximately 1,000 residents moved elsewhere. However, a group of resistors refused to leave their homes. They believed the government had failed to intervene earlier and inform the public about the fire that had raged for over 2 decades. Now, they were being forced from their land due to that same negligence and possibly to clear the way for profit-driven interests. As a result, in 1992, the state of Pennsylvania intervened directly. The governor issued an eminent domain order, revoking property rights and forcing expropriation. Buildings were demolished, and the town was gradually erased from maps. In 2002, the U.S. Postal Service officially canceled Centralia's zip code 17927. This marked the official end of Centralia as a recognized settlement. But the resistors didn't give up and continued to seek their rights through legal means. The lawsuits dragged on for years, during which people continued to live in their homes. Eventually, in 2013, a settlement was reached between the state and the final 7 residents. They were granted the right to remain in their homes for life. However, their properties could not be transferred, and upon their deaths, the land would revert to the state. No new buildings could be constructed, and urban development was legally prohibited. Despite having no running water or electricity, the remaining residents continued their lives in a post-apocalyptic fashion using generators, water tanks, and fuel cans. Like the fire itself, the lives of these resistors became the subject of documentaries. For example, the 2007 documentary The Town That Was focuses on the story of John Lokitis Jr., one of the resistors. It showcases abandoned buildings, collapsing roads, and the lives of the few people who still tried to live in the town. It is the most comprehensive documentary on Centralia. It even received awards at independent film festivals. A more recent production, Centralia, Pennsylvania's Lost Town, 2017, focuses more on technical aspects. It delves into the evacuation process and legal battles. It features interviews, archival footage, and modern drone shots of the town. It also explains the technical details of the fire. For viewers who prefer books, we recommend Fire Underground, The Ongoing Tragedy of the Centralia Mine Fire by David DeCock. Its value lies in the fact that the author also covered the story as a journalist, giving him direct access to local sources and allowing for a detailed historical account. For those curious about visual documentation of the town, both before and after the fire, we suggest Centralia by Daryl B. Johnson. Johnson blends official archival photos with personal anecdotes but leans more on documentary photography than literary narration. Lastly, let's talk about the legendary horror game Silent Hill. When discussing Silent Hill and its connection to Centralia, we need to distinguish between the game and the film. That's because Masahiro Ito, art director of the game project, clearly stated, "The design of the town of Silent Hill wasn't inspired by any real place. I've had to correct this rumor dozens of times. Similarly, series creator Keiichiro Toyama has said in interviews since 1999, Silent Hill is entirely fictional. We were just trying to capture the atmosphere of a small American town. Of course, the creators may say this to preserve the originality of the project. But for anyone who's played the game, Centralia is the first place that comes to mind. Especially when the statements of the film's writers and directors are taken into account. Screenwriter Roger Avery explained his inspiration for the film like this. My dad was an engineer, and I heard about Centralia as a child. Underground fires, a migrating town. These made for a powerful backdrop for a screenplay. Director Christoph Gans even used Centralia as a working codename during production to prevent leaks and to structure the atmosphere of the town based on it. Of course, we must distinguish the game from the film. The game is clearly a fictional, psychological design. But the haunting associations with Centralia's underground fire are only natural. Maybe one day, the fire beneath Centralia will die out. But the silence on the surface, the echo of abandonment, and the cost of human negligence will never be forgotten. This is not just the story of a mine fire, but of neglect, delayed intervention, and a lost way of life. Sometimes, reality is far darker than fiction. And Centralia still whispers the truth to us from underground. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you next time.